Hello, and welcome to This Song Sucks, a podcast where three musician pals get together and talk about the music that we hate. I'm Josh Kavanaugh, and I'm joined, as always, by Hayden Bronzing the Rig Crawford. How's it going, buddy?
Yeah.
And we have a very special guest today for the first time, Jamie, we gotta go, Sego. How you doing, Jamie?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited for you,
You're really
man.
good at doing that, Josh. You're really setting a high bar for yourself.
I know,
going forward here.
it's just gonna be downhill from here, man. I'm telling you.
Jamie, you got a spew over there?
Yeah, I'm spewing.
You got a noontime spew going on? What do you got, Corona? You living the Corona life?
Just a little Corona.
Man, that's luxury.
Getting in the frat rock mood, you know.
I'm still drinking coffee here like a goddamn sucker in Seattle.
Well, that's all you got out there, right?
Yeah, it's coffee and bleak misery.
Just coffee and the Kingsmen out there on the West Coast. Jamie's here with us today. We are doing the song by the Kingsmen, Louie Louie. Jamie, just before we get into it, what made you think of this song in a couple of words?
I think it really boils down to the fact that it kind of took off in popularity by being featured as the worst song of the week. It just seemed like something that would go over well in this podcast.
All right, so we're not the only ones with this opinion then. Okay, good. So we'll get into that in more detail for sure. But of course, first I'll start out with a little background on this song. The original Louie Louie was written by a guy named Richard Berry. He was born in the 30s and was a singer-songwriter who apparently performed with a variety of doo-wop groups around LA in the 1950s. And in 55, Barry was playing with this group called Rick Lela and the Rhythm Rockers.
Try again.
Rick. It's a double L. I don't know if it's Rick Rillera.
What's happening?
Rick Rillera and the Rhythm Rockers, which from what I found was a Latin/R&B group. This group played a version of a song called El Loco Cha Cha, which would become the inspiration and basis for Louie Louie. You can go listen to this song on YouTube. It's originally by a Cuban band leader named Rosendo Ruiz Jr., but the most famous version is by a guy named Rene Tuzet, and I think that's the version that Barry went off of, or at least this Rhythm Rockers group went off to do their version. And the repeated sort of rhythm that you get from Louie Louie that's very distinctive, that's in the introduction of the Tuzet version. But for other inspiration, Barry also cites One for My Baby as an inspiration for the lyrics. So kind of drawing on some various backgrounds for this song.
I haven't heard that one.
Well, One for My Baby it's like an American songbook standard by Harold Arlen and Johnny Mercer. But I think
cool.
Probably the most famous version is Frank Sinatra.
Oh, okay.
I knew you were going to say
Yeah.
Frank fucking Sinatra. That sounds like a Sinatra's bullshit.
I think the source I found specifically cited Barry using the Frank Sinatra version.
Can we start a separate podcast about how much Las Vegas culture sucks?
We could get into that for sure. I mean, I'm not going to hate on Frank Sinatra, especially
I will. I'll do that for
this
you.
version of the tune. So anyway, Richard Berry and the Pharaohs recorded and released the original version of Louie Louie in 1957, and it was actually a B-side to a single. The A-side of this one was the cover of You Are My Sunshine, which I couldn't actually find the version of that to listen to, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
I got enough of that with my mom singing me to sleep.
Yeah.
My childhood. So. Don't need to hear it again.
But the version of Louie Louie, it became a minor regional hit on the West Coast, selling around 130,000 copies. It was eventually re-released as an A-side, that version only selling 40,000 copies.
We're still talking about the Barry version, right?
Yes, this is the Barry version. Okay. So the Pharaohs, they toured the Pacific Northwest, and I think them performing this song, several R&B bands in the region began playing the song, which sort of helped establish its popularity. So it wasn't just huge radio hit, just other bands would pick up this song and start playing it. However, despite the regional popularity of the song, Barry's version never appeared on any Billboard chart. So while it was kind of, I guess maybe an underground hit is what you would call it on the West Coast, it never really had any national reach. As for Barry himself, apparently after a series of unsuccessful follow-ups, he sold his portion of the songwriting rights for $750 to a recording company in 1959. So, as we'll see here later, this is well before the popularity of the song shot off. He got $750, but there's decades of royalties he could have collected that he did not. However, later in the 80s, Barry apparently was living with his mother and on welfare.
Uh-oh.
And it's somewhat of a happy story. This drink company wanted to use the song in a commercial, and they found out that in order to do it, they still needed to have Barry's signature to use it. And so a lawyer from the company that went and met with Barry mentioned to Barry the possibility of perhaps getting his rights to the song back. And I guess eventually he found a lawyer to sue the publisher who owned the song. They settled out of court, which I don't think that means he got the rights back, but he got millions of dollars from the publisher.
Good.
So the last decade and a half of his life or so, he got that money.
Sweet.
So moving on to the sort of next version of this song. Again, I had never heard of this version until researching this week, but a Rockin' Robin Roberts and the Wailers version. God, these band names are so long and complicated back then.
Very rockabilly-esque, too.
Yeah, but so Rockin' Roberts, they were...
I bet Rockin' Roberts was a cool dude.
Yeah, unfortunately, he died in a car crash not long after...
I bet he was driving a sick car, too.
Damn.
Yeah, probably so. But him and his group are native to Tacoma, Washington, so they would have been familiar with the song. They released their version in 1961 on their own record label, and eventually it was reissued by a label in Los Angeles, but it failed to chart. And so it's again... There was some success, but I don't think he really had much more with the success with the song than Richard Berry did.
He did add some innovation to the song, though, right?
Yes, he did. It's significantly different from the Berry version, and I highly recommend anyone listening to go first listen to the Richard Berry version, then the Rockin' Robin Roberts version, and then, of course, you're probably already familiar with the Kingsmen version, but the Rockin' Robin version is kind of important. Reason we bring it up is because the Kingsmen's version, they're trying to emulate the Rockin' Roberts version.
They failed.
He added the let's give it to him right now part.
Yes, the most important part of the song.
Yeah, the most important part.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. Let's give it to him.
You chuck that beer and give it to me.
But just to give a brief discussion, the description. The Richard Berry version is very much in the 50s doo-wop R&B kind of style, whereas the Rockin' Roberts version, and then, of course, the Kingsmen, kind of moves more toward just like a straight-ahead rock kind of thing.
If that's what you want to call it.
If that's what you want to call it.
I'd call it a typhoon of horse shit.
Traditional rock and roll, typhoon of horse shit, potato, right? So that brings us to the Kingsmen version, and I'll just kind of give a little background on this.
Can we talk about the Kingsmen for a second? I feel like that band name is like a modern day white supremacy organization. Like it's coming. It's just not here yet.
They would have been right next to the Proud Boys, right?
Yeah, that's the next iteration of the Proud Boys. Some bizarre British themed white supremacy group. They're wearing like George Washington curls.
I'm pretty sure there's a Southern gospel group called the Kingsmen too, right?
The Kingsmen Trio, I think, is what it was.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
There's that. Well, I might mention this later about the Kingsmen. There's really not much interesting about the group itself, so we'll just kind of talk about how the song. They recorded their version of the song. They're from Portland, Oregon, so again in that Pacific Northwest region. Apparently, the story is that they added Louie Louie to their repertoire after they noticed that the Rockin' Robin Roberts version was being played over and over and over again on a jukebox at the club they were playing at. So I guess whenever they were taking a break, people would just go over to the jukebox and play Louie Louie over and over again.
Mm. Every time you say Rockin' Roberts, I think about Red Robin, and then I think about a bird. If I'm being honest. A juicy bird.
Mm. They recorded their version of the song in April 1963, and this may be somewhat of an apocryphal thing. There's really no way to...
what does that mean?
Apocryphal? Like made
It's
up?
like those biblical books, right?
Yeah.
What did I say about being a fucking nerd on this show, Josh?
I haven't even started talking about the music, and
You are Cormac McCarthy. Don't use that word.
Okay. It may be a made-up story, but apparently the night before they recorded They played a 90-minute version of it at a gig.
Oh man.
And, well, hang on, wait a second. They did what?
They played the song for 90 minutes straight. Could you imagine having to either...
Is there evidence of this?
Most of the sources about this come from, I forget the name of it. It's a book from 1998, but it's basically a history of the song Louie Louie.
Yeah.
And that it's cited from that. And, you know, if the thing is, if they're sitting and watching this being played at a jukebox at a club and people are playing it over and over again, it's clearly that they're just like, we don't even have to have a set, guys. We just play the same fucking thing.
Just all Louie all the time.
Yeah.
I'll say this. If Fish starts stretching out into a 60-minute, you enjoy myself, Antelope, or a Hood or something like that, I'm into it. But if Louie Louie is what's happening, I'm hanging myself.
Could you imagine having to play bass on Louie Louie for 90 minutes? I would blow my fucking brains out.
I kind of want to start a band now and just get up and play 90-minute versions of Louie Louie and see how long it takes to get kicked off the stage.
I think it'd be more annoying to be the keyboard player.
It's not good for anybody, especially the audience. So going back to their recording date, apparently they booked the studio they recorded in Seattle for an hour for $50. So, and they had to cobble it together amongst the group. So they needed to get in and get out.
I had no idea this shit was recorded in Seattle. That makes me so angry.
Yeah.
You're saying that this recorded version could have been about 57 minutes longer? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, you couldn't have fit a version that long on an LP back then.
Only for the reel-to-reel guys.
Yeah.
Wink.
But according to this book I'm referencing, the studio the song was recorded in had 3 microphones, but it's unclear if they used more than just one. And we can talk about that a little bit later. But the recording was produced by a local radio DJ who would later become the band's manager. But he apparently wanted to make the recording sound like a live performance. So they hung one of the microphones from the ceiling so high that the singer, Jack Eli, he had to stand on his tiptoes and yell into the microphone.
Can we talk about Jack Eli for a second? This guy just seems like someone who is just begging for an ass whooping.
What makes you say that?
I mean, he just seems like someone needs to beat the shit out of him.
You might need to elaborate that a little bit more as we go along.
Do you think Rockin' Roberts could have beat the shit out of him?
I mean, tell me. Oh, definitely.
I would watch that
Rockin'
fight.
Roberts? Oh, yeah. He'd put a leather boot so far up his ass. My point about Jack Eli is that I get major fraternity guy vibes from this guy's voice. Like, I can't explain it, but I just feel like he's the kind of guy who would hit on you after doing a keg stand at like a Sigma Chi party in Iowa.
Well, and this song was featured in Animal House, so that may be
there you go. See?
part of the reason why you get those feelings.
Yeah, I could see that association.
He just sounds like an asshole with like bangs.
Well, apparently one of the stories and why the excuse for why he's so unintelligible with the lyrics is that he had braces at the time of the recording. However, I've seen plenty of people with braces sing, and you can actually understand what the fuck they're saying.
Boy, that's not very garage rock or punk at all.
No. To have braces.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, back in the 60s, braces were much more like, I don't know, elaborate and painful than braces we have today. So maybe there's some truth to that, but I kind of think it's bullshit. But apparently the song was recorded in one take, and the band thought it was a warm-up take. But Chase, the DJ manager guy, liked the, quote, rawness of the take. So they literally...
That's one way to put it. Like raw dog in my ears.
I'm not even sure if they used the entire hour that they booked, because if you got one take and that's what comes out, it's pretty rough.
They didn't even try it again?
I guess not. I guess he was just like, "That's fine, boys. We're done. That's a wrap."
That's a wrap.
I think they
Head
also
down to Red Robin and get you a bird.
Yeah, head down to Rockin' Robins.
Rockin' Robins would be a better name than all of them. Johnny Rockets, Rockin' Robins, Red Robin.
Well, I think they also thought it was going to be like a demo for a cruise ship, right? Is that factual?
I didn't find that, but if you have that source, I mean, they're saying like
that's on the Wikipedia, so I don't know if that's a. how factual it is, but
So, like, they were recording this thinking, like, we're going to send this to cruise ship companies as an audition.
yeah, they wanted to be the in-house band for a cruise
It
ship.
does sound like something that you would listen to for hopping on a fucking Carnival cruise to Cancun or some bullshit.
So I'll go down talking now about the song's popularity. So, like I said, it was recorded in April of '63, and it first appeared on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 83 in November of that year. It reached its peak position of number 2 after 6 weeks and stayed there for 2 more weeks. But after falling to number 28 in late February of '64, the song disappeared entirely from the charts. Like, there's just no... It's kind of strange, but the reason that happened is that the song started to be banned by radio stations across the country. Apparently, it came from people would call into the radio stations and complain about the obscene lyrics. So, like, some housewife in Ohio somewhere heard this song and heard something in the unintelligible lyrics and was like, "Oh my God, this is awful."
What do these people think they're saying?
So, there was an FBI investigation, which I'll talk about a little bit here, but I couldn't find anything specific. But it got so bad that the governor of Indiana banned the song, just an outright ban. No radio station in the state of Indiana could play it.
Indiana likes to ban stuff,
Big time.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike Pence. But so this initial outcry escalated to the point where Attorney General Bobby Kennedy ordered the FCC and the FBI. Yeah, apparently he took a break from pounding Marilyn Monroe to order the FCC.
Pounding.
But the FBI investigated for 2 years, and it resulted in a 120-page report that compiles all the various purported dirty lyrics. And a source.
Do you have examples?
We need a Freedom of Information request.
Yeah, I mean, if I had maybe a little bit more time, we could get that. But the source.
Oh my God!
One of the sources I read basically said it just basically amounts to a giant compendium of awful, dirty language.
Dirty talk.
What's dirty for the mid '60s is probably a lot tamer than what's dirty now.
Like Spank Me Daddy or something. I don't know.
Maybe. But in the end, the investigation fizzled out after the FCC. They concluded the song could not be pornographic because Eli's vocals were, quote, simply unintelligible.
Yeah, unintelligible at any speed.
Yeah. Playing it backwards, whatever they could do. So, I mean, obviously the radio play suffered as a result, and that's probably why the Billboard, it just dropped off that chart. However, the album it was on, which is called the Kingsmen in Person, it stayed on the Billboard 200 album chart for 131 straight weeks. So 2.5 years, basically. So the album sales didn't hurt all that much. I will say, though, that I also think that there's another factor for the Kingsmen's sort of slow drop-off. Because they had a couple other hits, I think maybe a top 10 and a top 20 hit a couple of years down the road. But we all know what happened in early 1964, right?
Early 1964.
Yeah, I think they were Cashbox was like a different...
Yes, they charted higher on that typically, but, I mean, they fell from the chart quickly because the fucking Beatles.
Yeah, they got knocked off by, I Want to Hold Your Hand on that one.
She Loves Me as well.
Or She Loves Me,
I mean, so they appear on Ed Sullivan in February of 64, and that's right around the time. So, I mean, to me, it's just we don't want to hear this shit. We got the fucking Beatles now, so...
Have you guys heard the trend going on now with young people talking about the Beatles sucking? It's like a thing.
That's been a trend for a while.
They can all go fuck themselves. Damn kids.
All right, old man.
Did you see the Frank Zappa quote when he was talking about important songs, and he listed Bob Dylan, Subterranean Homesick Blues, Paperback Writer, and Louie Louie as his...
Frank Zappa said that. That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, Frank Zappa.
Well, I think Frank Zappa kind of used Louie Louie as a bit of humor, because I found a quote where he said he kicked a guitarist out of the band because he couldn't play Louie Louie.
Yeah. It's jumping ahead too, but he also featured it in a dozen little bits of it, or show up in a dozen of his songs.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where I'm going next. Other versions of the song. I mean, immediately after the Kingsmen did their version, Paul Revere and the Raiders recorded
Yeah,
one.
they recorded it 1 week later in the same studio.
And it sounds so much better. But what I found apparently was that the reason this version was not successful, because at the time, Paul Revere and the Raiders were like a huge band. And again, their popularity sort of waned once the Beatles came in. But the reason that their version didn't have any success is because there's an A&R guy in their record label who hated rock and roll and intentionally did not promote this, so it tanked.
What is this guy's name? Do you have this guy's name?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but it's something like Bill White Chesterton's son or something like that.
Yeah, Bill Walshman.
Yeah,
I can see this guy in my head.
But some other this song has been recorded by an estimated 1,600 to 2,000 times. So other versions, there's tons of them, but this is just a list of people that are kind of well known. Otis Redding, the Beach Boys, the Kinks, the Trogs, who of course are famous for Wild Thing, which is kind of basically the same.
Yeah, it is.
Chord progression.
Yeah, very similar.
Motorhead did one, and it sounds exactly like you would think a Motorhead version of Louie Louie would sound
fucking
like.
badass. It sounds like, yeah.
And then going back to Frank Zappa, his songs Plastic People and Ruthie Ruthie are sort of based around that song. And again, like quotations even if you listen to some of his live stuff, he kind of cheekily will reference it in his like guitar improvisations. But also, Black Flag and The Clash have done this song as well.
Yeah, and the Stooges.
Iggy Pop, exactly. Yeah. There's actually a list, if you go on the ASCAP website and look at the rights of the song, it tells you the performers. But like Joan Jett.
Toots and the Maytals did a reggae version.
Toots and the Maytals, Barry White.
Oh man, I haven't heard that.
Oh snap!
Yeah, Ike and Tina Turner have also done a version. But yeah, there's just everybody has done this fucking song, and I kind of want to talk a little bit later about maybe getting a discussion of why we think this particular version in the song itself got so popular. But I'm going to kick it over to you, Jamie, since you brought the song in to kind of go through the specifics of what you hate about either the song or this particular version.
All right, so I have to clarify. I don't actually hate this version. I'm a fan of bad music, and so I like this kind of stuff. But I did think it was suitable for the podcast, but mainly because of how the popularity really exploded by being featured by a DJ on like hey, this is the worst records of the week. We'll play it, and it just got so many people calling in saying, hey, play that worst record of the week again. So that's kind of like the genesis of this song's popularity. I thought that was funny. And there's just so much weird stuff about this song. So it seems like such a simple song, like this is the kind of thing you hear all the time, like in your high school band or something would like play it during a football game, but yet it's like been covered 2,000 times. Like that's just completely bizarre.
It is very strange.
Yeah.
Like how the cultural phenomenon that it became just off of a poorly performed 145.
I think there is like a charm to the how, ramshackle it is. If you're into that kind of thing, I don't know. You might have to be a weirdo to like that kind of stuff, but it definitely is out of all the popular, the fact that it's the most popular version also is really weird because the other versions are so much more competent,
Totally. I'm a fan of like ramshackle and like raw stuff. Like I'm not above that at all, but I think there's a difference between that and what's going on here.
What are those differences, Hayden?
Jack Eli is just screaming about white supremacy. Apparently, I can only assume. What are we talking about?
No one will ever know, really.
Well, I mean,
only Robert F. Kennedy, and they shot him. So,
yeah.
Good riddance.
Do you think that's the real reason RFK was killed?
I think RFK really knew the real lyrics of Louie Louie.
Yeah. I mean, the actual lyrics, the original lyrics, are about like a sailor who's kind of talking to his bartender Louie, talking about he has to go and sail back to his woman, right? And that the kind of gist of it.
Yeah, that's the gist.
I mean, so there's really
so this is technically a sea shanty.
Technically, yeah.
I don't know. He's on the bar at a port, so is it a sea shanty or a port shanty? I don't know.
Port shandy.
It also heavily influenced by Havana Moon, the Bo Diddley song. If you like Apparently, he didn't really know how to write the kind of island dialect, and he just kind of copied that out of Havana Moon, the Bo Diddley song.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I did not know that little tidbit.
Bo Diddley Diddley, neighbor.
But yeah, one of the things you mentioned, you say like high school band, and before I start getting into specifics, I want to open up a discussion. I think one of the reasons that this song is so popular and has been recorded so many times is because anybody with basic musical proficiency can throw a group of 3 or 4 guys together and play this song. It's like, oh, we've only rehearsed and we have like we have 50 minutes worth of material, but we need 55. What should we do?
I've had 7 natural lights and we have 20 minutes.
Yeah,
let's learn Louie Louie.
and that's the thing, is that it's so simple. It's the same chord progression over and over again. Which again, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but if one person in the band knows it, they can literally take 30 seconds to show the other members of the band what key it's in, and then if you're the singer, because the most famous version, you can't understand what the fuck they're saying. The only part that needs to be coherent is the Louie Louie and the we gotta go. And
then you got a whole set, just 90 minutes of that. You got a whole set. You're good to go.
Just see where it takes you, bro. Ride the wave. So at some point, we're going to like blow up a nice big balloon or a big ball and start batting it around.
But I think there's something to it. I mean, all 3 of us have probably played this song in a band in front of people at one time in our lives.
Absolutely not. I never did this one.
There's not. Well, hey, why is there not a Loggerhead version of Louie Louie?
Oh, man.
Well, you got to stop bringing up Loggerhead on this podcast. I did record a Loggerhead version of Boys of Summer that I was prepping for a show one time that I didn't ever do.
Oh man.
Would have been pretty awesome.
I neglected to mention, there's the story of them having an hour and a half version of it the night before they recorded. But however, I found you can go look at this video on YouTube. But in August of 1983, Richard Berry, the original songwriter, performed this song along with Jack Eli, the vocalist from the Kingsmen. And it was for a radio promotion where various musicians and volunteers performed the song for over 63 hours straight.
Well, hang on.
And they were all wearing white T-shirts that had been printed with Louie Louie and a big like X through it. So it's like the whole.
Oh my god!
Yeah, the whole.
It's like performance art.
Yeah, the whole shtick is like this song is like kind of so dumb. Let's see how long we can play it.
Maybe this is kind of brilliant.
Yeah, so I guess just like you just kind of do like a swap with people. Like the bass guy comes in and swaps with him, and then another guy comes in, and you just have this continuous line of people playing the song for 2.5 days.
Whenever I hear this bass line, I can, in my head, I just see like a guy wearing like ill-fitted jeans with like a 5-string Yamaha bass he doesn't need, just like playing this song. Probably wearing flip-flops.
There's a bit of that aesthetic in the guys playing this song on this YouTube video. I mean, Richard Berry gets up there and like busts out, I think the video is like 11 minutes long, but he's sitting there and he fucking slays it on a keyboard, playing solos and stuff.
Well, yeah, of course he does.
Yeah. And then, of course, Jack Eli starts singing, and it's just like, oh, yep, there's this asshole again.
Is it intelligible? Is he?
It's slightly more intelligible, yes.
Slightly more intelligible?
Yeah. I think he finally learned the words to the song. I mean, and that's what I think happened, is that they probably didn't really know the song all that well. And the Kingsmen was kind of an amorphous group of people that changed a lot. So it could be that the group of people that play the 90-minute version beforehand was a different set of people than who recorded it.
Fish.
That was Fish,
they
actually.
They went on to be Fish.
But let's dive into some of my specific problems with this song. I mean, Jamie, you're a recording engineer, and I think it's pretty clear that the quality of this is just absolute dog shit, and you can't blame it on the technology of the time, because again, you can go listen to the Paul Revere and the Raiders version that was recorded in the exact same fucking place, and it sounds a billion times better.
Yeah, I mean, very different.
What's going on here? Like
the 3-track recording was pretty standard for 1963. You didn't get 8-track until about a year later. Aside from Les Paul, there wasn't really many people doing 8-track recordings. So you don't really hear that in like popular music until you get to like the Supremes in 1964. So like they were it's kind of state of the art recording for the time. But there's definitely a lot of, it sounds like probably an untreated room. There's a lot of bass buildup for sure going on.
Sounds like a mud pit for sure.
Sounds like a mud pit, definitely.
A mud pit. That's a really good way to put it.
So I think they were just probably, it sounds like there was probably a mic pointed in the general direction of the band. There was a mic obviously above the singer, according to legend. And then it sounds like when the guitar solo comes in, I don't know if that's an overdub or if they just kind of crank it up at that point because the guitar just jumps, into focus there.
Like it's being close mic'd, right?
Like it being close mic. So if there was a third mic, I imagine it was close mic on the guitar. So it sounds like there's probably in all, there's like one mic for the band, one mic for the singer, one mic on the guitar that kind of only really comes in during the solo is what I would guess.
Yeah, I mean, because I just, my assumption is it's more than one mic because you can really hear, to me anyway, the phase cancellation and the cymbals on the drums.
Yeah, something definitely is going on.
Which is when, for those who are not initiated, phase cancellation is when if mics are placed at different locations from one another, like the sound wave cancels the signal out because they're not set at the right location. And that's like something it takes a long time. Jamie, you could probably attest to this, like to really learn how to set up your microphones for recording to avoid that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a very easy thing to accidentally do.
Yeah. But specifically about the vocals, we kind of joked about the, okay, let's give it to them right now, that he screams before the guitar solo, which I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt because he did take it from the Rockin' Robin Roberts version. And he does it...
The Red Robin version.
The Red Robin version, excuse me.
Just say that from now on.
And he also screams, let's go at the very end, but it's just this like high-pitched squeal. And it just sounds awful and completely out of place. I mean, just in general, I'm not a huge fan of when like the vocalist says like, "Oh, something's about to happen. Get ready."
Here it comes. Here comes some Clapton licks.
Yeah. For an example, a good example that like James Brown is the master of that, right? Like, can I take it to the bridge? It's just him being fucking coked out of his mind and just probably not knowing what's going on. But it's amazing in that context. But here in this Louie Louie version, it's just it makes you jump out of your seat and be like, what the fuck is wrong with that guy?
And then you get hit with one of the worst guitar solos I've ever heard.
Yes.
I'll wait for my turn on that, though.
That's the last thing I want to go to on my list here. But other than that, on the vocals, Hayden joked earlier when I introduced him to yeah.
Josh, no.
Yeah.
Let me do that stuff.
Okay,
all right?
I'm sorry. But
I'm the sound effect guy.
These existed in the Red Robin version, excuse me. But again, just the tone of Jack Eli's voice is just, it's more of a grating shriek to me than an actual like sung melody.
Yes, it's very grating. I feel like his name should be Brett or Chad.
Trace, maybe?
Not Trace. Trace too country, man. Country.
I don't know of a country version of Louie Louie. That may be an untapped market.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I feel like he's already spinning
I can already hear.
Yeah. My next point here is the
take that song to No Shoes Nation. Am I right?
Hell yeah. But my next point here is the drums. I think it's evidence again that the band probably really didn't know the song because the drummer is just shitting all over the place with fills.
What is he doing? Like, I literally, my note for this says the drummer. What in the fuck is he doing?
I mean, like, generally you put drum fills at the end of like vocal phrases and sections, right? And
not this guy.
Not this guy. When the guy's singing at the beginning of the first half of the guitar solo, it just sounds like he threw the drum set down a flight of stairs.
He's trying to do the Jimi Hendrix thing. Huh?
It's the Keith Moon of Portland in 1963 for sure.
Oh, this is 63. I'm way off.
But it's funny. One of the things that the FCC missed is that it's pretty clear that the drummer yells "fuck" about a minute into the song, and I think the reason he does it is because it's the one place in the song he's supposed to play a fill, and then he doesn't.
I read that he dropped a stick.
Did he drop the stick? Okay.
Yeah, that's why I yelled fuck. But you're also correct that would have been a good place for Phil.
Pretty good recovery aside from yelling a fuck.
Funny enough, the moment where he yells fuck is like the most steady beat that he plays. Like he's like kind of he's grooving for like 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah, so they should have just taped one of his arms behind his back.
Yeah. He had one stick too many, I guess.
It's almost like he's trying to misplace fills though in the rest of the song. I gotta agree with you there, especially in the guitar solo.
Well, he has to save the singer after the solo.
Right, because the singer comes in too early.
Yeah. So he has to put a fill in there. So good job, drummer, there.
Yeah. So stepping on the vocalist at that time was actually the right thing to do. But my next point is about the dynamics of the song, which, other than the organ intro up front, the whole song is just one volume. And again, as I've said before, and I'll continue to say, having a simple chord progression or melody or arrangement is fine, but if all 3 of those things are going to be the same thing over and over again, you have to have quiet parts and loud parts in your arrangement. But no, it's just the same fucking thing. It's a plateau the entire recording. So to me, that's really the thing that makes me not want to listen to it at all, is that there's nothing in it that makes you turn your head and say, oh, what's going on here?
What if you had just done a keg stand in 1963, Portland?
Might have a different opinion there.
Man, that was good.
Oh man. So let's get to the guitar solo then.
Let's get to that fucking guitar solo.
Apparently, from what I read, he was trying to emulate the guitar solo from the Red Robin version, but obviously fails miserably. I mean, the rhythm is absolute dog shit.
God.
He attacks the notes really sloppily. Sounds like he's just bashing the strings, which, again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a legitimate technique to kind of get a raw, dirty sound out of muting a bunch of strings.
Duh.
But in my opinion, you listen to the first half, it has a lot of that, but then you can tell in the second half he's trying to be a little more articulate with the notes and be a little cleaner, but is still just really sloppy with his technique.
It definitely is. It sounds like it goes on too long. The solo goes on too long. It's just, if they could have had a little burst of slapping the strings or whatever, and then just been done with it, but it kind of goes on a little bit too long, or he kind of runs out of steam.
Yeah, and I think again they talk about how the band was unprepared to play it. There's actually, if you go on Spotify, there's a live recording of the band from '64. It's called Live at the Castle, and I was shocked at how good it is, because I'm assuming it's the same guitarist. Maybe it is a different guitarist because they, like I said, they rotate a little bit, but it's all competent playing, which makes me think that maybe if you'd given this guy another 30 minutes to rehearse, he could have come up with something better.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe so. I mean, that does make sense though, because when you consider, Jamie brought this up earlier in the week, but I think it's very apparent at the end of the guitar solo that he is playing in a minor and the keys are playing a 7. They're not even playing the same chord. Because right at the end of that guitar solo, he hits a very distinct open, I think, E minor.
Yeah, totally.
And the keys are clearly on a 7, so it's very obvious that they just don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And he's not always. The funny thing is, I was listening to it pretty heavily in my headphones this morning. He's not always hitting the minor or accentuating the minor that hard, but he definitely does 2 or 3 other times, and it stands out really bad when he does it.
It's like an open E minor chord, is what you're saying? Just
rather than because the keys is a very hard 7 on that third that 5.
Yeah, so maybe the keyboard player was the only one who actually knew the song.
Right.
But I would say overall, it's pretty clear that in that moment, that guy had no business really attempting a guitar solo on this song.
The funniest thing about the guitar solo to me is how, especially considering how sloppy it is it's pretty clear that Dave Davies from the Kinks based a lot of his guitar solos around the Louie Louie solo.
You think so?
I mean, they're very similar. Yeah. If you listen, and also, the Kinks recorded a version of Louie Louie.
Right.
But if you listen to You Really Got Me, it was supposedly they wrote You Really Got Me while they were trying to figure out how to play Louie Louie.
You know who else it reminds me of? It reminds me of Robbie Robertson in the era of playing Dylan lead guitar.
Oh yeah,
just pentatonic wankery.
Yeah, for sure.
That might be the best description of that style of guitar solo I've ever heard. Pentatonic wankery. Well, that's all I have specifically about why I hate this song. So unless either you boys have something to add to it, it might be time for Hayden's YouTube corner.
No, I got some. I want to talk a little bit more about it. What bothered me the most about it, than what we just talked about, is how much better the Richard Berry version is. Like, I listened to that track like 3 or 4 times. It rules.
Yeah.
It's such a good song.
Got a good groove. Yeah.
Yeah, like, how lazy do you have to be to fuck this up as bad as they did? Or I guess rather, how white do you have to be to fuck this up this bad? You know what I mean? It's just
the Richard Berry version is very close to reggae for a 1950 song. You know, like I don't know if did reggae. I don't think it existed that early in the 50s, right?
I think some of the precursors of reggae were around, and you know, like the original song was, like I said, based off of a song that's a cha-cha, which has kind of similar syncopations, and I'm sure it may just be that sort of Cuban music is a common sort of inspiration point for reggae, and then this particular, the Berry version of Louie Louie.
It's got those little upstrokes on the guitar that sound very reggae, you know.
Yeah.
Just to hammer on the guitar player a little bit more too. Like, if we want to talk about like
wait,
how
hammer
great
on? Is that a pun? Did you mean to do that?
Ooh, nice one, Josh. Fucking nerd. I mean, he had such great source material to mine from. Like, because the guitar playing in the Richard Berry version is super interesting. Mm-hmm. It's like aggressively clean picked, discordant chords. And actually, you know what it reminds me of, Jamie? I'll see if you'll bite on this, but like the guitar playing in the Richard Berry version reminds me of fucking Primus.
Oh wow!
Like because they're doing this thing here.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of what, you know. I don't know why I'm playing the South Park theme song, but
we get a copyright ding on that one, Hayden.
I feel like Larry LaDon from Primus probably loved that version.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm serious. I'm making a bold call here, but I see a clear correlation between those like styles there.
I can see that. Yeah,
the Richard Berry version, much like a lot of the '50s doo-wop and R&B, had actual 7 chords in it, which are a little more dissonant than what you're seeing in the kind of the whitened down version of this song that you hear from Rockin' Red Robin and the Kingsmen.
Also, the total lack of fraternity vibe in the Richard Berry version.
Yeah, I mean, it's I highly recommend. I mean, I was telling Hayden before we started recording, the nice thing about researching for this song this week is that I haven't had the Kingsmen version stuck in my head. I've had the Richard Berry version stuck in my head.
Yeah,
which is just phenomenal. Awesome. So I recommend to any listener who has not heard Richard Berry's version of Louie Louie to go listen to it right after you're done listening to us.
Josh, have you composed a theme song yet for my YouTube corner?
No, I have not yet. I got to get on that. Maybe I'll take inspiration.
It's YouTube time.
YouTube time with Hayden.
Now I'm just singing like Cartman. Time for YouTube time.
Yeah, it's time for YouTube time. What'd you find this week, buddy?
Well, there's a lot of people on there just clucking about the FBI and bullshit. Mm-hmm. But that's all pretty boring. I didn't think I was going to find anything, and then I did. There are several threads on the YouTube comments that are started with this kind of thing. Every high school had the guy who claimed he knew the real words to Louie Louie. And like there's like 2 or 3 of those that like go off into, comment spirals, and I was like, and it made me think about like me being in like 5th grade and like pretending to know what 69 meant, So I guess I was one of those guys.
Oh gosh.
Do you think Alex Jones knows what the real words to Louie Louie are?
The subliminal messages.
If anybody is a member of the modern Kingsmen, it's Alex Jones. And so I found some comments that kind of illustrate my frat point further.
Oh yes, please.
Mike says, my go-to karaoke song when I'm blackout drunk. Cool, dude. And the next comment is, I'll need 10 kegs of beer, a continuous tape of Louie Louie, and a regulation 2-story panty raid ladder.
What?
Fucking disgusting, man.
I'm glad that those are regulated, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Who gets on a YouTube comment section to write this?
The ghost of Jim Belushi.
I guarantee you this guy had a pop collar at some
Oh,
point.
yeah. Absolutely.
I believe it's actually a song about herbs. Louie Louie, oh no, oregano. And to close it off, Monkey Boy 007 says, the perfect song to listen to as you're hit by a bus. The last thing I want to say about the YouTube comment section is the most second talked about thing outside of the FBI shit is everyone talking about how garage rock this song is. Can we stop calling this song garage rock? Just because it sucks ass doesn't make it punk. Like, it makes me angry.
It's frat rock.
Yeah, this is definite frat rock. This is not garage rock.
Is garage rock necessarily related to punk? I just associate
Yeah, but garage rock has a more like hard edge punk aesthetic. You know, it's like it's a cool hard lined thing. It's not Louie Louie with a bunch of guys in bangs and Yamaha instruments playing a song poorly.
But if you do want to hear a great garage rock version, the Sonics have a kickin' version of Louie Louie in 66.
You have such a wide well of unknown garage music, Jamie.
Yeah,
It's kind of a problem, isn't it?
it's unfortunate, I guess.
You want to talk about it? I'm here for you, buddy.
I think the versions though, back to the version. I think it is you can kind of like trace like the history of like rock and roll music through just Louie Louie. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, there you got the Richard Berry version, the doo-wop and all that. You got the Kingsmen. You got there's a bunch of garage rock versions in like the post Beatles, you know, 65, 66 era. But then it goes just a few years later, you got the Frank Zappa doing Plastic People, and it is like worlds away. It's like the musical zeitgeist has traveled like 1,000 years, you know, from 63 to 67.
Absolutely.
Musical zeitgeist, nice one.
Well, come on. You don't call him a nerd for using a word like that.
No, because Jamie's cool, Josh.
Double standard.
Also, like the Iggy Pop version in the 70s where they start into Louie Louie and he goes, it's come to this as like, here's like the lowest point in their career. We're playing Louie Louie.
I mean, it just seems like such a paradox because you're right. I mean, you can trace the lineage of rock and roll through this song. And of course, the song's been played by so many people and it's influential in that way. But it's just like, why? This is so fucking awful version. I mean, and again, I do like certain versions of the song, but just overall, it's kind of a nothing song. There's nothing special about it, you know. But maybe that's exactly why it's endured so much, is because it's just so generic that it can appeal to anybody.
Yeah, shows why we've all been so successful in our own musical endeavors, huh? Louie Louie sucks, dude.
Solid point. Well, unless Hayden, you've got any more internet gems, I think it might be time to wrap it up.
We gotta go, to be honest.
Well, we gotta go.
Me gotta go.
Jamie's gotta go.
Jamie's gotta go.
All right, so Hayden,
Bum.
thanks as always. Jamie, thanks for joining us. We look forward to having you on again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll see everybody next time. This Song Sucks is brought to you by The Alabama Take. Follow us on Instagram at This Song Sucks Pod and on Twitter at SucksPod. You can also find us on the Alabama Take Facebook page. Comments, hate mail, and song suggestions for future shows can be sent to thisSongSucksPod@gmail.com.